Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the research you share and, well, we dive right in. Today, we're tackling something straight out of science fiction, except it's actually happening. We're talking about de-extinction, bringing back extinct species. And this isn't just lab coats and theories anymore. No, we're seeing real engineering projects, big money, aiming to resurrect animals like the woolly mammoth, even the Tasmanian tiger. Some of these companies have serious backing. We're talking multi-billion-dollar efforts popping up fast. So, okay, let's unpack this. What's really going on? Where does the science actually stand right now?
Right. And the mission for you today really is to look past the simple can we do it question. We're moving into the how are they doing it? Yeah. And maybe more importantly, why? Because the field's exploded, it's using super advanced tech genome editing AI, but that speed brings up some pretty intense ethical questions, ecological ones too. We need to understand the mechanics, sure, but also why it matters. Or maybe why it might be a distraction from, the conservation issues we're facing right now with living species.
Okay, so first things first. When we say resurrection, we need to be clear. It's almost never about making a perfect carbon copy, right? It's more like creating a proxy, a hybrid.
Exactly. A proxy or a hybrid. The sources we looked at really outline three main ways they're trying to achieve this. The first two are, let's say, simpler, but maybe less common for the big headline species. You've got backbreeding. This is the oldest method. Basically, selective breeding of living relatives to try and bring back ancestral traits.
Like trying to get modern zebras to look more like the extinct quagga.
Precisely. The quagga project started back in the 80s doing just that with plain zebras. No fancy gene editing involved, just careful breeding. Then there's cloning. In theory, you'd use an intact cell from the extinct animal, but the reality is tough. It's super inefficient, takes tons of tries.
It's impossible for some animals.
Yeah, particularly birds. Their eggs, with the complex yolk structure, make it currently a no-go for cloning as we know it.
Okay, so that really leaves the third way as the main event for de-extinction today. Genome engineering. Precise hybridization.
That's the one. This is where the cutting-edge stuff happens. It leans heavily on paleogenomics reconstructing ancient DNA, and a tool you've probably heard of, CRISPR.
CRISPR, the gene editing tool.
Exactly. Think of it like molecular scissors, really precise ones. Scientists use it to snip the DNA of a close living relative, the template species, and then paste in chunks of reconstructed DNA from the extinct species.
The goal being to get those key old traits back, like cold resistance for a mammoth.
Precisely. Or specific physical features. But even getting that ancient DNA to paste in, that's where AI has become, well, a game changer.
Right, because ancient DNA isn't exactly pristine, is it?
Oh, far from it. It's degraded, broken up, mixed with bacteria, soil, you name it. It's a mess. AI acts like a genetic detective.
Okay.
It analyzes all these fragments, compares them to living relatives, and basically predicts what the missing bits should look like. It's like an evolutionary forecaster.
And this makes it faster. Cheaper.
Massively faster. Just think, the first human genome took 13 years, cost $1 billion back in the 90s. Now, under $600, maybe 20 minutes, AI is doing something similar for piecing together these ancient genomes. It's an exponential leap.
Wow, 13 years to 20 minutes. That's hard to even process. But, okay, if AI is so good, what's stopping them? Is there still a limit, a hard wall?
There is, and it comes down to the source material itself. The best example is the study on the Christmas Island rat. Researchers tried to reconstruct its genome using its living cousin, the Norway brown rat, as a guide.
Okay.
They got about 95% of the extinct rat's genome.
Sounds great, right?
Yeah, 95% seems pretty good.
But the missing 5%, that contained really crucial genes, things important for smell, and critically parts of the immune system.
So even with 95%, you're missing key functions. You can make something like it, but not it.
Exactly. That's the accepted limitation. They know they're aiming for a functional proxy, a close approximation, not a perfect identical twin. That missing piece matters. Got it. Okay, let's talk about the projects making headlines. Colossal Biosciences is a big name here, right? Especially with the woolly mammoth.
Yes. Colossal is driving a lot of the conversation. Their public goal for the mammoth, or mammothant, is to have a cold-resistant elephant with all of the core biological traits of the woolly mammoth ready by 2028.
Okay, 2028, ambitious. But they're using Asian elephants as the base, the template species.
They are. And Asian elephants are highly endangered themselves.
Right. So how do they square that? Using an endangered animal as a surrogate, essentially, to bring back an extinct one, that sounds like a huge ethical problem.
It's a massive point of friction, a huge concern. Using a vulnerable population to birth a new proxy species. It
Yeah.
raises serious questions about potentially harming current conservation work.
So what's the workaround?
Well, this ethical dilemma has actually pushed them towards something that sounds even more like sci-fi, developing an artificial womb.
Seriously? Growing a mammoth embryo outside an elephant?
That's the goal. They're working on tech to grow these modified embryos entirely ex utero, using special nutrient mixes, hydrogel matrices, basically trying to replicate the womb environment externally.
Okay, hold on. If they crack that, forget mammoths for a second. What does that mean for human medicine, for IVF?
That could be the real breakthrough here, honestly. Many see these adjacent innovations as potentially a step function leap for human health.
How so?
Well, the techniques for keeping a complex embryo healthy outside a body, they could directly translate to improving human IVF, maybe growing embryos longer or healthier before implantation, or it could accelerate gene therapy development, testing things in these controlled microenvironments.
So the tech developed for mammoths might end up helping human fertility and disease treatment way more directly.
It's a distinct possibility. The bioengineering itself might be the most valuable output, regardless of whether a mammoth ever walks the tundra again. It certainly puts the massive investment in a different light.
Definitely does. But Colossal isn't just about mammoths. They're also looking at predators, right? The Tasmanian tiger, the dire wolf.
Correct. The thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger that's a carnivorous marsupial, wiped out in the 1930s. Bringing it back is a whole different challenge.
How so?
You're talking about reintroducing an apex predator into an ecosystem that hasn't had it for almost a century. That needs incredibly careful planning, long-term management. It's not just about making the animal.
And the dire wolf. They actually showed off some pups recently. Modified gray wolf.
They did. In 2025, they unveiled pups from gray wolf DNA edited to have dire wolf traits. But this project drew some criticism.
Why? What was the issue?
The main focus seemed to be on size. They engineered the pups to be like 10 to 20% heavier than typical gray wolves.
Bigger wolves. Sounds impressive, I guess.
Impressive visually, yes. But critics point out that focusing on a dramatic trait like size suggests the choices might be driven more by commercial appeal and grabbing headlines, rather than purely by what's needed for ecological function.
Ah, so it raises questions about the motive. Is it ecological restoration, or is it creating, well, a spectacle?
That's the tension exactly. Is the goal ecosystem balance or investor excitement?
Which brings us right to the core of it. The ethics, the ecology, the so what of all this power.
And when you ask the experts, the picture gets complicated. Surveys show that scientists actually perceived de-extinction as more likely to harm the environment or human health than to benefit them.
More likely to harm. Wow. What are the big risks they see?
Two main ones kept coming up. First, the proxies could act like invasive species. We just don't know how they'd interact. Imagine a mammoth proxy changing soil, water, vegetation in unexpected ways.
Okay, yeah. Unintended consequences.
The second big fear is wildlife disease. Could these proxies carry new diseases? Or, even stranger, could the process accidentally reactivate ancient viruses encoded in the DNA fragments they use, rebooting old pathogens?
Yikes. Okay, that's unsettling. But the argument for it is about restoration, right? Fixing what we broke.
That's the counter-argument. Proponents see these proxies as potential ecosystem engineers. The mammoth, for example, could supposedly help restore the mammoth steppe grasslands by knocking down trees, which might even help with carbon sequestration, restoring lost functions.
But is it worth the cost? Not just the ecological risk, but the actual money. This sounds incredibly expensive.
Which leads directly to the opportunity cost argument. It's a major concern. Is the massive funding and, just as crucial, the scientific brainpower being pulled away from saving species that are, still alive but endangered now?
Is there data on that?
There was one stark calculation mentioned in the sources. The estimated cost to bring back 5 extinct species in New South Wales. If you took that same money and put it towards conserving living species there, you could potentially save 42 species.
5 versus 42, that's a powerful comparison. Makes the trade-off very clear.
And tied into that is something called moral hazard. The worry that if we think we can just bring species back later, we'll be less careful about protecting them today. It creates a sort of safety net mentality, like, don't worry too much about habitat loss for the rhino. We've got CRISPR. We can fix it later if we have to.
That feels like a dangerous road to go down. So weighing all this, what about the idea of a moral duty? Didn't we cause many of these extinctions? Don't we owe it to them somehow?
That argument is definitely out there, especially for species like the passenger pigeon, clearly driven extinct by human actions. There's a feeling of obligation for some, but others, including philosophers, push back. How can you have a moral obligation to something that, well, doesn't actually exist anymore? It's a tricky ethical knot. And you also have high public concern, often fueled by...
Let me guess. Jurassic Park.
Exactly. The Jurassic Park scenario. A fear of unintended consequences, of hubris, of creating something we can't control, that looms large in the public imagination.
Understandably so. But amid all these risks and ethical debates, is there a clear upside beyond just bringing back extinct animals? You mentioned the IVF connection earlier.
Yes, and this is crucial. We can't overlook the positive flip side. The very tools being honed for de-extinction, the advanced CRISPR techniques, the artificial reproduction methods, they are also significantly boosting the toolkit for de-endangerment.
Meaning helping species that are still here, but struggling.
Precisely. These technologies can help increase genetic diversity in small populations, make them more resilient, fight diseases. So the tools developed for resurrection might be most valuable in preventing the next extinction. It's a really important silver lining.
Okay, so wrapping this up. It feels like de-extinction is this perfect storm. Amazing technological power, CRISPR, AI crashing right into huge environmental and ethical responsibilities. We built this incredible engine, but we're still figuring out the steering wheel, the brakes, the rules of the road.
That's a great way to put it. The capability is racing ahead of the wisdom, perhaps. But I want to leave you and our listeners with one final thought. Something that pushes this even further, forcing us to maybe rethink what extinct even means.
Okay.
Consider two cases mentioned in the sources. The bucardo, or Pyrenean ibex. It went extinct, but some cells were saved, cryopreserved. They even briefly cloned one, though it died quickly.
Right, I remember reading about that.
Now compare that to the northern white rhinoceros. Functionally extinct, only 2 females left, can't reproduce naturally. But crucially, viable reproductive cells, sperm and eggs, also exist in cryopreservation.
Okay, so both have frozen cells that could theoretically reproduce the species.
Exactly. And the sources point out that biologically, from a reproductive potential standpoint, these are identical cases.
Right.
Even though one has 0 living animals and the other has 2.
Whoa. So the bucardo, totally gone from the wild, is somehow the same reproductive state as the rhino, which still technically exists.
From the perspective of the preserved cell lines, yes. And this raises a profound question for our time. In an age of cryobanks and advanced biotech, is a species truly extinct if its reproductive potential survives in a freezer? Should we actually redefine extinction? Maybe create a new category for species that exist only as viable cells, as genetic blueprints waiting for the right tech?
A sort of suspended extinction.
Perhaps. The science is pushing us to reconsider the very definition of being lost forever. Something to really think about. We hope this gave you a clearer picture of this amazing field. If it did, hit that subscribe button and join us for our next deep dive. See you then.